Seattle, where I was also fortunate enough to play college basketball, where I've learned a lot about life through athletics. So I've decided to pursue Dream of Mine to create my own business, and in which we have LockBox. So the problem that we see in school environments, there's a lot of text on there, so try your best to read along. But if you look at school environments, there's three major stakeholders. You have schools, students, and parents. So currently, I also attended, or back in the day, I also attended Christ School, which is a private boarding school in the mountains of Western North Carolina.
Go Blue.
Actual school?
Yes.
Oh, actual school, I'll move back to you. And so the current environment is you have these three major stakeholders, and they're not a communicating, thriving unit. They tend to operate in their own environment. And so LockBox aims to bring transparency and communication to all three parties. So we notice in point B that typical surveys do not focus on wellness and development of students. You have these, how is your class with Jimmy this semester? How is your teacher? And so you're not really diving into the overall wellness and development of these students. Furthermore, it's difficult for students to express their concerns. So when I was 14, I had an event where I felt helpless, where I did not have a voice, where I could, it's difficult to seek an administrator, to then sit in the administrator's office and give your feedback, whether that's positive or negative. So it's a challenge for these students. So LockBox also aims to engage with students in a significant and familiar manner for students. And that's point B as well. Then we see the solution. So LockBox aims for students to have a healthy, supportive, and positive experience that propels them into a successful next chapter of their life. So in doing this, it increases engagement between all three parties. There's open lines of communication and transparency between the parties. It prepares students for life by advocating for one. Gives students and parents the ability to shape their experience by voicing their opinions. Furthermore, for the schools, it's a benefit because it's a consolidated platform. You have everything that you could possibly, any concerns, any feedback is all right there, and you can quickly engage the environment at a moment's glance. And then finally, it focuses on wellness and development. So it's not your typical one-time academic survey. It really dives into wellness and development, which I will touch on next with these 5 emotional pillars. So you have engagement, safety, health, emotional, and mental. So students and parents can give feedback based on these 5 pillars. So it's an application of web-based solutions centered around these buzzwords that I keep using of student wellness and development. And so schools will be able to receive the feedback based on these 5 wellness pillars and have actual insights. So an example of this is, let's say school A implements LockBox into their environment. They send out, or they gather feedback, and they notice that freshmen emotional levels are very low. So if this is a boarding school, which is where I went, that's pretty common. You see that it's a change for students, it's a different environment, everything's brand new, it's a whole new lifestyle, they're away from home, it's a difficult transition. So now the school has these actual insights, and now they have the ability to go ahead and do something about it. So whether that's bringing counselors, offer different support systems for these freshmen during this time, because they know this, they have reports, they have data that back this up. Maybe that's more ice cream socials, maybe that's a forum or two, or certain events that can increase that emotional wellness. So the value, like I've mentioned several times now, the value for the school is the actionable insights. They have the ability to now do something, they have awareness and understanding, they have benchmarking capabilities where they can compare year over year and different trends and easy to use charts and visuals and graphics. For the students, an opportunity to be heard and to be engaged with, to be able to shape their experience. If they're going through something, being able to voice their opinion, to have something change, to be able to impact their overall experience. Furthermore, for the parents who are probably one of the most essential pieces to this puzzle, parents want to be reassured and affirmed that their parent or their son or daughter is doing well and that they are okay. So the parental peace of mind. Parents also, I'm not a parent, thank God yet. I can only imagine that parents want to understand and to know that their child is okay and that they are going to be okay and that they're going to be prepared for life and prepared for success. So on the right, we have a prototype in the making, and on the left, during the market validation phase of the process and understanding if this was actually a need out there, I talked to, so I go to AB as I mentioned, and so I decided to talk to every school within a 100-mile radius and kind of understand the feedback, how they gather feedback is important, and in doing so, feedback is essential for them. A lot of these private boarding schools, $50,000 to $60,000, if you're losing 2 kids in a year, that's $100,000 of your budget, which is essential for schools. So retention is very important. So this is also a risk management platform and a retention insight platform. So this comes from school. I believe there's a lot of merit to the platform. I feel schools would, should, and need to be interested. And so I look to talk to several different positions within schools, whether that's the head of school, director of counseling, etc., to kind of gauge the overall need of the platform. And so as we continue, there are, this is an example of a homepage, so you can answer questions, you have best practices, which I'll get to in a minute, and then a Your Voice feature, which you can also see on the bottom right. And so the Your Voice feature is an open text entry for any student to say whatever you would like in an open form. So if it's not related to a question, you have the ability to voice your opinion. As you can see in the middle ones, or the top one is the 5 wellness pillars. And at the bottom, you see an example question, and it's ranked on a 1 through 5 scale, where students can input their feedback along with another open text entry. And so, like I mentioned, best practices, and what this is a healthy habit. This is meant for guidance and tips, where parents and students can kind of scroll through per each pillar. So for this one, this is a health, so it's exercise to release stress and school blurred, but it says tip 1 of 10, and so you have several tips that you can scroll through to kind of understand different practices for each pillar that can help improve whatever it is that you're feeling or going through. And here's the overall benefit for the school. The school will be the ones who purchase this platform and implement it into their environment, and so the benefit is it's simple and it's consolidated. So you open up the platform, it's a web-based solution and an application, so you can open up at your desktop and you can see all sorts of feedback, positive, negative, good, bad, ugly, everything is in there from parents and students. And you can quickly engage the environment of the school, whether that's, there's also a Your Urgent feature, which requires immediate action from the school. So if there's any sort of emergency, schools are alerted of this and able to take action. And so, like mentioned earlier, the Kickstarter launched this morning, and so the goal is $8,000, and I have 30 days to do it, and so I launched this morning, and about, well, almost past there, almost at 10, and I'm a quarter of the way there, so I'm excited. Today's a big day. It's a nerve-wracking time, but I'm excited for what's to come. And as we can see, the LockBox launch will end on Friday, the 17th. So that being said, thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it, and I'd love to answer any questions. Quickest hand I've seen in a lot.
Yeah, I understand the schools and everything the schools get out of it, and you talk to your 100-mile radius of schools, and I assume you talk to administrators and teachers and those. Did you actually talk to students?
Yes, I have. It also helps because I was one of those students. So in talking with students, there's several things that I learned. Some students, there's also an anonymous feature. So some students said that they would want to be anonymous in providing feedback. Other students said, no, I want my name to be attached. I want the school to know that I said this, that I feel this way, that I think this. So the talking to students absolutely helped position certain features and capabilities that I would like the platform to have.
Did you get an idea of what percentage of students would actually use it? Because I kind of look at it as some sales operations guy, right? Always trying to put out a CRM system that salespeople would use. The business loved it because they get all the data and stuff, but salespeople hate to use it.
Right.
And so I kind of look at it the same type of deal.
I understand that, and so when I was a student athlete, there were so many surveys that the school would send about compliance or your coach or whatever, and so you're filling these out, and it's like, this is just too much, this is too many questions. So that's the focus of mine of limiting it and making it short but straightforward and to the point. So for the student side, I absolutely understand that, and I'm hoping that schools, when they're doing this, because the feedback is essential. It's a risk management platform. They want to improve their overall environment, and they know that this feedback is important. So the school offers incentives for the students to do this. So one of my MBA courses that I'm in right now, the professor offers 5% extra credit if 90% of the class does it. So that's a small example, but it could be implemented the same way. So the school gets 90% feedback, X, Y, and Z happens. And so that gives the students incentive to deliver the feedback, and then also get something in return. But that's an ice cream social. It's more ice cream.
Yeah. With this, for example, a lot of the universities and everything have different programs, like UNC has like an addict advisor with a group of people with entrepreneurs. NC State has foreign students. Could you use it and scale it to a point where it's program oriented, so you can see how those students appreciate that program itself?
Right.
Scale it, not the whole university or whole school or whatever there might be, but just that. Have you looked at or done pilots in that?
If I'm correct, you're asking about a certain group
Yes.
of people?
Yeah.
So, and honestly, I'm trying to stay away from the college students as much as possible, because I feel like college students just don't care. I was a college student, they're just not gonna provide the feedback.
Well, if they're forced to, how about that?
If they're forced to,
Yeah.
potentially, a K through 12 is more of what I'm looking at, but if I get some entrepreneurs and I can force them to do it, absolutely. Before I get there, I'm looking to get the prototype going, so then I can do sort of focus groups where I can actually implement it to a school, and then it will change as there's real life in there, because I like this. This sounds good in theory, but when you actually implement it, there's going to be things that change and evolve. So I'm hoping to implement it with schools, students, and parents, kind of like the focus group idea that you said. Thank you.
Have you thought about getting the Kardashians involved?
What is your recommendation on the Kardashians?
Actually, the real, just a joke.
No one went over my head. I'm not too big of a Kardashian.
Right, they're not abandoning school, they keep their money elsewhere, but what I wanted to know is, are there competitors, what differentiates you, and, what you need other than money?
Perfect. Now I can show off all the beautiful slides, all the other ones. All right. So the competition. Some of these, most all. I forgot to include email on here. An email sounds silly, but a simple email from a parent to a school is a competitor in a way, because that's the exact thing. But a lot of these other platforms are more scheduling based. So it's Timmy, you have a homework assignment due. You have a test in a week. There's not a lot of communication on these platforms at all. So it's more so fighting against parents using an email or a call to the school, and a lot of these scheduling platforms that tell the parent what they have or the student what they have.
Okay, so Trish and Frank were waiting for a while, and then we'll pop back up and over, okay?
Perfect.
So, are you seeing this as going to be a requirement by the school as the first line of communication from parents and that sort of thing, to be able to control the helicopter parents from calling and emailing and all that sort of thing? Let this be sort of the filter?
Right, that's what I'm hoping.
Yes.
So a negative that comes with that is you kind of, again, I'm not a parent, but the snowball effect of parents. So there's also, I'm looking to implement another feature, a parents blog. So the parents can kind of write something and relate and connect to other parents.
Right.
Because from other parents is what I've heard. That's what my dad told me when he was, when I was a boarding school student, that he looked to connect. My dad, he wasn't involved, it was more so my mom. And so my mom looked to connect and understand other parents and see if they could relate. So I'm also gonna look to include a parents kind of blog. But the problem with that is the snowball effect. So if one thing, and it continues to tumble, but I'm hoping, you're right, the kind of helicopter effect of the schools, where it's a consolidated platform where if you have something go on here, and the school understands that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's okay, I know why he's ignoring me, this is a long-standing.
Yeah.
But joking aside, I want to make sure I understand your target market, and I have a follow-up question. So you're going after boarding schools and their students, is that a fair statement?
That is pretty accurate. So boarding schools along with private schools.
Okay, so the process that you're digitizing is part of the culture of the boarding school then. So when I think back to my boarding school experience, I'm still friends, I'm still, you know, in touch with the faculty who were my advisors 30 years ago.
Right.
You're creating a process now to step into between that relationship, and you're digitizing that. And so part of the reason that I, as a parent, would send my kid to boarding school is I want you to have these same types of relationships and this camaraderie and that lifetime mentor. So is that not an inherent challenge to getting the adoption?
In part, I'm hoping that this enhances that process. So it can be difficult for certain students, from what I understand, again, I'm not a parent, but parents want that to happen, but that's not always the case with certain students. Some students don't always reach out to these counselors to create these lifelong mentors and these memories. It doesn't always work that way. So I'm hoping with LockBox, it almost enhances that relationship. It puts the student in ability to reach out and ask for help or get feedback. And then with that being said, if your name's attached, the school can then connect and you can continue to build that relationship.
You had a follow-up question?
Like,
Okay, step back there and then we'll pop over here.
Uh-huh.
All right, so, I was a former lifelong educator, but whatever. I taught at a private school last year. And, what the issue was, what the issue there was partially, getting parents and students to actively give feedback. You know, that's a part of it. But another part was that when we got feedback from the parents and students, self-reporting, so, you know, them stepping forward and lodging complaints, there was a problem with a lack of regularity in the answers between teachers. And so what would happen is we might get like, you know, 100 responses from parents, and they'd all be about, you know, slightly different things. Do you have any kind of tool that seeks to, you know, obviously don't want to box people into a specific kind of answer, but do you have a tool to help standardize or try and like get some kind of statistical aggregation of the feedback?
So
I don't know if this would be like through like suggestions on like kinds of questions that are pertinent to these students, you know, so that, you know, students have better ways of expressing the kinds of problems that they're having, so it's not just always, well, I don't click with the teacher. Okay, well, what does that mean?
right, and kind of get to the root of the problem.
Yeah. Do you have any plans?
So I have not thought about that yet, but that's a great point. I'll need to jot that down and implement that. So what I'm thinking about currently is two separate packages. So you have the traditional package, which is basically for the school to operate however you want. So here's the platform, and when you gather the feedback, how you act upon that feedback is your responsibility, if that makes sense. So if you have 150 different answers, that's more so on the school to kind of sort through and figure out, well, is this support, is this not, do we see a theme here? How can we get to the root of the problem? And then the consulting package is more so of how can we help. So if the school A says, we're noticing this, what have other schools done about this? What do you recommend? And so it's helping in that sense. So I haven't thought about that yet, but you're right, and possibly including that into the consulting kind of package.
So I was gonna ask, as a parent,
Hopefully I can relate.
2 children who either recently would have used something like this or currently could, have you thought about interacting with some of your homework providers like a Khan Academy? That actually the kids go online and they do their homework on these, and that way, because changes and trends in the time they take to do it or their grades on the little assignments that happen on a daily basis, it's very hard for a parent to track.
Right.
Your kids do need to be more independent, so you need to be able to not be on them all the time.
Right.
But if there is a trend where things are going down, the student may not report that to a LockBox, but that could be a sign of some kind of mental or social problem that needs to be addressed. And so the interacting with some of the already digitized homework and performance standards and measures, then the school would be able to track, if we bring in a new teacher, and then all of a sudden this class, they're all going down.
Right.
And, you know, so the parents can track that too, and kind of be a little bit more proactive.
Right. Those are two great points that I should definitely implement. I agree with you. I have not.
Just as a parent, I thought that would be awesome to be able to have. You get a little alert, hey, for the last 2 weeks, things have been late, things are kind of going down.
Right.
And, maybe you should reach out.
Right. I like it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. So I'm gonna actually, my question is kind of a combination of the woman ahead and the gentleman behind. I noticed you said something about private school. So the school that my son goes to uses Power School that has a lot of the information you're talking about on there. I agree with the gentleman in the back though, that, Frank, thank you, I'm Donna. That is the relationship building that you really want to create. And so I sort of see the issue with this too. And if I think about my son right now, the first question he would want to know is how does that link into his Fitbit and whatever else he's doing in terms of soccer. So that was just kind of some things to think about in terms of how does this all integrate everything, because they really want it all in one place. So,
Right.
that's just kind of a common thought.
Right. Okay, appreciate it. I'm looking to kind of do an application as well for student feedback on that, and I'm hoping that the LockBox actually enhances certain relationships. So I understand that's a perspective of a parent wanting your child to go ahead and form these relationships. For some, it can be difficult to seek and then form those relationships. So I'm hoping that LockBox is a way for students to engage with schools in a manner that's familiar for them.
Do we have time for one last question? Greg?
Yeah, you talk about preparing students for life based on 5 pillars. The most grossly overlooked pillar, which is not in your slides, is personal finance. Do you do anything? I mean, you can start that in elementary school and go all the way through, just how to prepare your life personally, financially wise. Is that a consideration or anything?
I have not thought about that, but that would fall perfectly under the development side, so that would be perfect. So LockBox looks to aim for student wellness and development, and so the development and preparing students in these environments for life, that would directly fall under that. So I have not thought about that, but that's a great point. So I got 1, 2, 3 great points right now.
And that is one of the video.
Perfect, I love it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.